In this lesson video, we are going to discuss two things, the local coordinate and the origin. Let's discuss the local coordinate first. In the object mode, if you select an object, you can see its coordinates in the object properties panel and also in the sidebar. If you move the object, we can see how the coordinate changes. Blender uses the origin as the point of reference to calculate the coordinate. You can see this orange dot at the center of the object. This is the origin. So again, what you see here as the coordinate is basically the location of the object's origin. Now, if we go to the edit mode, we are now measuring the mesh element's coordinates and not the object as a whole. You can see in the sidebar, we have two types of coordinates, local and global. So what is the difference between local and global coordinates? Well, the difference is, global coordinate uses the center of the world as the reference to calculate the coordinate, while local coordinate uses the object's origin as the reference to calculate the coordinate. If we select this upper face, for example, we can see that the z local coordinate is 1 meter, because the distance from this face to the origin is 1 meter. But if we use the global coordinate, we get these numbers, because now we are calculating the face coordinate using the center of the world as the reference point. The way Blender calculates multiple mesh elements is by finding the median point of all the selected mesh elements. That is why you can see the word median here. So for example, if I select only this vertex up here, and we have the coordinate mode set to local, we get 1 meter in a z-coordinate value. But if we hold shift and then select this vertex, the z-coordinate value now shows 0. This is because Blender calculates the median point of the two vertices, which happens to be perfectly aligned to the origin in the z-axis. We have briefly discussed origin before. Basically, the origin can be considered as the center of the object. Blender uses origins to define objects' coordinates. But the most important role of origin is not just that. Origin is used as the default pivot point when doing a transformation. For example, if I scale this cube in the x-axis and then scale it also on the y-axis, we just created a door. Now, if we go to the object mode, use the rotate tool, and try to rotate it, it uses the origin as the center of the rotation. If this is a door, we are not expecting it to rotate like this. Well, yes, there are special doors with hinges at the center of them, but most common doors have hinges at the side. To make this door to work properly, you need to move the origin to the side. So you understand now how important it is to be able to edit the origin position within an object. To edit the origin, Blender provides several ways to do this. First is by using the set origin commands. Second is by using the 3D cursor help. Third, by moving the mesh instead. And fourth, which is new to Blender 2.81, is by using the Affect Only Origins option in the tool settings. Let's see each of these methods one by one. To use the set origin commands, you need to be in the object mode. If you are in the edit mode, you won't find the object menu up here. So again, make sure you are in the object mode. Go to the object menu up here and choose Set Origin. You can see here we have some options to manipulate the origin. Most of these options are for centering the origin, except this one which uses the 3D cursor. To see what these options do, I already prepared several cubes here. As you can see, each of these cubes has origin positioned outside the mesh area. If I select this one, and then go to the object menu, set origin, and then choose origin to geometry, we now have the origin centered at the object. Let me undo this. Now if I choose geometry to origin, the origin is now also at the center of the cube, but the difference is, the mesh moved towards the origin instead of the origin moved towards the mesh. Next, Let's select this cube here. Now this cube is a bit different. If we go to the edit mode, you can see that I added a lot of details on the right side of it. If we go back to the object mode and then choose origin to geometry, this is what happens. The origin will move towards the right area instead of the center. So what I want to point out here is that either the origin to geometry or geometry to origin will use each of the mesh elements' locations to calculate the center location for the origin. In other words, the density of the vertices matters. Let me undo this again. Now, what if we only want to calculate based on the surface or the volume, disregarding the mesh element's density? Well, you can do so by using these two methods of origin to center of mesh. If we click this, we can see the origin is now at the center of the cube, disregarding the mesh density. If we open the object menu again, we can see that there are two types of origin to center of mesh command: surface-based and volume-based. Most of the time, these two options will produce the same result, provided you have a nice manifold object. If you have a non-manifold object and or flipped normals problem, the second method, which is the volume-based method, will produce incorrect results. The second method of manipulating the origin is through the use of 3D cursor. The way this works is basically we move the 3D cursor first, and then we move the origin to align to the 3D cursor. Let's go back to this cube here. If I hold Shift and then right-click on this spot, the 3D cursor will move to this location. Now, if we go to the object menu again and then click this origin to 3D cursor, the origin just moved to that location. Another scenario is moving the origin to the center of a face. If we press Tab to go to the edit mode, then select this face for example, hold Shift and then press S. This will open up the Snap Pie menu. Choose Cursor to Selected. We can see the 3D cursor is now placed precisely at the center of the face. Now, to move the origin to the 3D cursor location, remember, we cannot do that inside the edit mode. So, press Tab to go back to the object mode. Go to the object menu, set origin, and choose origin to 3D cursor. Now the origin is exactly at the center of this face. The third method is by moving the mesh instead. To do this, you need to be in the edit mode. Let's go back to our door example. If we move an object in the object mode, the origin will follow. But if we go inside the edit mode, select all of the mesh elements, and then move them, like so, we can see the origin stays. So, let me undo this. Press 1 in the numpad to go to the front view. If we want to move the origin to the left side, we can move the mesh to the right side instead. Like so. Now, if we go back to the object mode and use the rotate tool to rotate this door object, it rotates as expected because now it uses its side as the hinge location. At this stage, some of you might be wondering, hey Widdy, how come the origin is used as the pivot point? Well, the pivot point option up here is set to median, not the individual origin. Well, these options only matter if you have multiple objects selected. If you only have one object selected, all of these options, except the 3D cursor option, will use the origin as the pivot point. The fourth method of manipulating the origin is by using the Affect Only Origin mode. This is a new feature introduced in Blender 2.81. By using this mode, when you do transformation such as moving, rotating, and scaling, all of these will only affect the origin and not the object itself. Now, to activate this mode, there are several ways that you can do this. First, you can open this options panel up here and then activate this origins option here. While in this mode, you will see the X, Y, Z axis coming out from the origin. You can also open the sidebar panel. In the Tool tab, you will see the options and then Transform sections. Inside this, you will see the same settings we saw before. Or you can also open the Tool Settings tab in the Properties editor. You can see the same settings here. The last method is by using the shortcut, which is Ctrl dot, not the dot on the numpad, but the dot or the period symbol on the left side near the L letter key. So press Ctrl dot to activate the Effect Origin Only mode, and press Ctrl dot again to deactivate it. After we are in the Effect Only Origin mode, we can use G shortcut or use the Move tool here to move the origin to any location that we like. We can also use the snapping feature while transforming the origin. For example, let's turn on the vertex snapping mode. We can move the origin along the z-axis and then hold Ctrl to snap to this vertex. Or just use the G shortcut to freely move the origin and then hold Ctrl to snap it to this vertex. We can also snap the origin to other mesh element types. For example, faces. We can turn on the face snapping mode here. Press G and then hold Ctrl and move the mouse cursor on this face to position the origin to this face.